Now, as promised, we have Tamsyn on the line. Tamsyn, morning.
Morning, Hayley.
Thank you for coming on the show. So, Tamsyn, you're a social media lawyer, is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and how did you choose to focus on social media law?
Well, my background is actually in corporate law, and sort of a couple of years ago, I started seeing that social media was becoming, quite big, and we started to see people get into trouble for what they were doing and saying online. And I was just fascinated by it. I think, perhaps it's a generational thing. I was kind of right in the heart of being interested in Facebook and Twitter. So I went off to London then and studied media law and communications law at the London School of Economics, and came back and joined up with a former colleague of mine, Emma Sadler. And this is now what we focus on, and it's just an absolutely fascinating area of the law to be involved in.
Fascinating and only getting bigger and scarier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I know you focus on social media law, but no lawyer can get away without commenting on the Oscar trial, I'm afraid. So, your thoughts on yesterday?
Well, from the social media perspective, my mind has just been blown as to the levels of engagement that we saw yesterday. Already since Valentine's Day last year, Oscar and the killing of Reva has been sort of front and center of social media in South Africa, but I think just the numbers yesterday must have blown that out of the water. I think from what I followed, the reaction has been mostly that of outrage. I think those who were convinced that Oscar should have been found guilty of murder were outraged. I think it's a wonderful thing that we have this powerful platform
to
be
vent
able
our anger, yes,
exactly, to engage with the issues, and also to have access to these brilliant criminal minds and legal minds
that are commenting throughout the day. Sure.
Absolutely. So it's been fascinating to watch. I think it took a lot of people by surprise, the judgment. I could say that.
No, absolutely. I was just venting earlier that this whole dolus eventualis, like the fact that he didn't know he could be killing someone by shooting those shots into the door. I mean, that's what's getting to me at the moment. And I can see people venting as well on social media about the same thing.
That's exactly right. I think that's where people are slightly confused, and that's where, again, it's great to be able to access these great legal minds. And even amongst the lawyers, I think people are debating the blurring of the lines between dolus eventualis and the reasonable man test for negligence, and sort of talking about those issues. But the judgment isn't over.
Yes,
We're only halfway through,
maybe we shouldn't be too quick to come to our own conclusions.
Yeah, let's see what happens today. It will continue to be interesting.
Do you think we'll hear the final conviction today?
Yes, we will. We will hear the end of the judgment today. The judgment was set down for Thursday and Friday, so she'll definitely finish today.
Okay, all right.
It's actually been she's been quicker than I thought. I thought that it would be quite a long and tedious judgment, but she's actually gone through it quite quickly.
And it's also been, it's been fascinating to listen to. I thought it would be in very highfalutin legal language, but it actually, you can follow it, and to a certain extent, and it actually is quite gripping. You find yourself being taken away from your work for like hours on end. It is a little bit of a soap opera.
Yes.
But now let's go to your exciting news that you and Emma have co-written this book called Don't Film Yourself Having Sex, and that launched this week. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct. It is very exciting. We had our book launch party on Tuesday, and it's been a really exciting couple of days.
Congratulations on that. I'm sure you doing interviews left, right, and center. I feel very special to get a few moments of your time. Maybe you can tell us how this book came about.
Well, it was just that, Emma and I are so involved in this educational work. We believe so strongly in the fact that people need to understand the risks and responsibilities that go with these public permanent platforms that is social media.
Yes.
And, we do a lot of this educational work, and it just seems like people were so desperate for the knowledge and so ignorant about the risks that go with this technology. So, we thought we could try and talk to every single person in the country, or we could just write a book.
Okay.
And I think that writing a book was perhaps an easier way to get the message out
to the numbers that you're trying to target.
Exactly.
Is the book for teens? Is the book for parents? Is it for corporates? Who's the book aimed at?
Well, we like to say that it's sort of from everyone from 8 to 80, because the issues just can touch every single person, from a grandmother uploading a picture of their grandchild onto Facebook to a teenager getting their first phone. So what we've done is we've divided it up into sort of the legal section where we discuss issues like defamation, privacy, intellectual property, hate speech, and then more common sense issues like online safety. Don't film yourself having sex, the revenge porn issues, and interesting things like what happens to your accounts when you die. And then we've got a whole section dedicated to children, cyberbullying, the sexting epidemic that we've seen in schools in this country, and then a whole section dedicated to business. So from the hiring to firing stage, using social media in the recruitment process, how to manage company platforms, how you can lose your job by what you say online.
Okay,
so it really touches every single aspect of people's lives.
It goes across the board. And you mentioned
Absolutely.
what happens to your account when you die. What does happen to your account when you die?
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about Oscar, and it's a good touch point because we see Reva's Instagram account is still completely public and completely open, and her Twitter account. So we haven't really given much thought to this, and gone are the days of you handing over a shoebox full of old photographs when somebody passes away. All the stuff is stored digitally now. Yeah. So we see issues when people pass away of family members trying to access their accounts, and it's often quite difficult. So what we advocate is to actually think about these things now, perhaps included in your will, how you actually want your online presence to be dealt with.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that can actually be a whole separate clause in your will. I mean,
exactly,
because that's your legacy.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
We're talking about online banking, your photographs, your music. All your emails. These are now digital assets just as much as a house or a car.
And hugely personal, of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now the title of the book is Don't Film Yourself Having Sex. Did you go with that title because that's kind of one of the main points you want to put out there, that people are obviously doing this and it's having very dire consequences?
Well, people think it's just a catchy title, but it actually stems from a real case that we had to deal with. Of a young girl who was filmed without her knowledge having sex, and I found 6 months later that this video was all over the internet with her name, her surname, and the company that she worked for tagged. So that when you typed her name into Google, the first result was her Facebook page, the second her LinkedIn page, and the third to 300th result for this video on porn sharing sites. So, and unfortunately, because the nature of these things is that to get them taken down, you have to sort of shine a further light onto it and bring it into the public domain via public court documents. Ooh. The only thing that she could do to escape this content was to change her name.
Whoa.
So it's mind-boggling how the reputational damage that can be done.
And the drastic measures that you might have to take.
Exactly. So we really advocate prevention is better than cure, and that's why we'd rather just don't do it in the first place, because as soon as this sort of content, be it a sex tape or a picture of yourself without your clothes on, as soon as that exists in digital format, it's going to go somewhere, and you're going to lose control over it. So let's rather just not create the content in the first place.
Now, I know you and Emma have this, is it would you call it a law firm together where you focus on social media law? Is that right?
Well, yeah, it's a company. It's a consultancy that we run. We consult. We're no longer on the practicing role.
Okay, so it's a consultancy, and I wanted to ask you, what kind of clients you get and what kind of issues you often have to deal with. Maybe there's someone listening that is struggling with a certain kind of awkward situation, and they might need your help.
Well, what we do is we've had a call. We get at least once a week a call from a parent that his child has been expelled from school because of something they said on social media, or whose child is suffering incredible cyberbullying, or a sexting picture that's gone viral all over the school.
Yes.
Also from just ordinary people suffering defamation on Facebook. All these sorts of issues. And then also we do a lot of work with corporates, how to manage platforms, who owns these accounts, how to manage employees, because, an employee can bring incredible reputational harm to a company by virtue of, if they hop online and start spewing hate speech or something like that. So it really is corporates, private individuals, and then, of course, we do talks to schools, to parents and children, and to corporates on all these issues as well.
You mentioned some serious cases, like an employee can have a detrimental effect to a company. Are the police clamping down on this sort of thing, and can you be prosecuted for irresponsible kind of online behavior?
Yeah, you absolutely can. The content that you put on social media has just the same effect as if you were to publish that content on the front page of a newspaper. That is how the law treats it. It is a publication.
Yes,
and so if it's defamatory, you can be sued. If it is illegal, you can be prosecuted. But the biggest consequence, the most likely consequence, is going to be an employment consequence, because it's very easy in the digital age to link someone to their employer. Everyone's got a LinkedIn page, or they say on their Facebook page who they work for.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, what you say on a Friday night while you're drunk, tweeting while you're drunk, on a Monday morning, your employer, if you sufficiently link to that employer and you've brought their name into disrepute, disciplinary action can be taken, and that's the consequence that we've seen most often in South Africa.
Okay, all right. So that's what's happening. Here that's the most common consequence that you're seeing.
Yes.
And tell me, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on something completely different? What are your thoughts on platforms like Tinder?
Well, I mean, I think that in the digital age, this is where people are going to be engaging. We can't say to people, don't use these things. I would say that as long as you're using them safely and you're not, giving out your address or your personal details, by all means, go forth and use them. I hope that people find love.
So it's just about responsible use, Sam.
Absolutely. We're living our life online. This is the age that we live in. And so, if I've heard some wonderful stories of people meeting a significant other on Tinder. So as long as they're using it responsibly, and that's the sort of message across all these platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, everything.
Yeah.
As long as we just think before we post and think before we do anything as to how this content could be misappropriated, misunderstood, then I think we're halfway there.
Sure. And last question I want to ask you is, what age would you give your child a tablet or a smartphone?
Well, I don't think that we can. A lot of times when we speak to parents, we instill this fear in them, and they say, "Oh, I'm not giving my child a phone. I'm going to take their smartphone away." I don't think that that's the reaction. We must acknowledge the fact that communicating over social media is an integral part of a child's life growing up in this age.
Yes.
This is how they communicate. This is their social circle. So I think that I know that Facebook has an age restriction of 13, so I would say from 13, 14, 15, as long as, I think that parents sit down with their child, help them open their Facebook account if they want one, explain the issues of privacy to them, explain the issues of responsible use. It's no longer good enough to say, social media is for the children. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
They must just go do what they want. We need to
be
sit
involved
down with our kids. Absolutely. Sit down with them. Help them, explain the issues to them, and let them explain to you how these platforms work.
Sure.
Children are often far ahead of their parents on these platforms. It's all about education. But I think about 13 to 15 is what I would say.
Okay, interesting. And Tamsyn, just for people who have now heard what you've been saying and are interested in getting your book, maybe for their children or for their personal capacity or maybe for their business, how do they get their hands on a copy?
Well, it's in all bookstores. It's 230 rand, and you can find it from the self-help section to the business section. It's called "Don't Film Yourself Having Sex and Other Legal Advice for the Age of Social Media," and it's also available as an ebook.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I wish you all the best of luck with the book. I think it is very well needed, and I hope the message gets spread far and wide.
Great, thanks so much, Hayley.
Thanks, Tamsyn. Have a brilliant weekend.
You too. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye. That's social media lawyer and co-author of Don't Film Yourself Having Sex, Tamsyn de Beer. Some nice words of wisdom and warning there from Tamsyn. So you can get your hands on that book from all leading bookstores. Don't Film Yourself Having Sex. It's 230 rand.
The Hayley O Show, only on balls.co.za.